Hello, young artists. It is time for another lesson of art at home with Mrs. Miller. Today, we are going to be learning about a very famous French artist, Claude Monet. Now, Monet spent a lot of time painting outside in his garden, and when he painted, he was trying to capture the essence of color and light that he saw in his plants, flowers, and trees. He wasn't really worried about making everything look realistic or perfect. He just wanted to give you an impression of the garden around him. While we won't be going outside to paint today, we will be creating an impressionistic piece of artwork using Monet's water lily pond paintings as inspiration. First, I'm going to show you some photos of Monet's garden and lily pond in France, and then you can see some of Monet's actual famous paintings. He did a whole series on his lily pond. For this lesson, you will just need a couple pieces of printer paper. You're going to need some colors. I used colored pencils, but you can also use crayons. Those work great for this. You'll need a pair of scissors, a little bit of Scotch tape, and as far as your colors go, I want you to use Monet's color palette. So we're going to be looking at using some greens, blues, pinks and purples, and maybe a little bit of yellow for our lily pad flowers. The first thing you'll need to do is find a wall in your house with a slightly bumpy texture. That means you can rub your fingers across it and you'll feel that paint raise just a tiny bit. Most walls that were painted with a roller have the perfect amount of bumps. With our crayons or pencils, we're going to pick up that texture of the wall above our piece of paper. So we're actually going to be coloring across the paper while it's against the wall and cover an entire page with shades of green and yellow. Then we're going to cover a second sheet of paper with only blues, so lots of different colors of blues. This is going to be our water page. Make sure you move your paper around on the wall so you get lots of different colors in different spots. So now that we have these two pieces of green and blue colorful paper, we are actually going to be cutting them up and weaving them together to create our artwork today. We are going to take the blue sheet of paper and fold it in half lengthwise so that it looks like this. Make sure to match up your corners really well. Use your fingers to press that middle crease down. And then we're going to take our scissors and cut from the folded side up. We're not going to cut all the way through. We're just going to cut up to about ½ an inch from the top of that piece of paper. So I'm using my scissors, I'm coming up, snipping, but I'm not cutting all the way through. And I'm not making these totally even. I'm doing different sizes, so some are a little bit wider than others. A little tip to make sure that your scissors are cutting straight every time and your paper is not getting a little wonky, you might need to hold down your paper with your left hand or your right hand, depending on which hand is cutting with the scissors. When you unfold your blue sheet of paper, you should have slices all the way through, but the paper should still be connected. So now we're moving on to the green sheet of paper, and I'm going to actually take my colors and do a little extra coloring on top. I'm just adding some more vibrant greens, yellows, and a little turquoise to look a little bit more like my lily pads in the pond. Then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to start cutting strips. Now this time you are going to cut all the way through. We want these strips of green paper to be able to go through your blue. So we're actually going to be weaving each strip through. So you need to cut all the way across, and you can choose to cut them any size you like. So younger artists, you might want to cut these strips a little bit thicker, and maybe if you're a little bit older of an artist, you can challenge yourself and try and cut some thinner strips with some straighter lines. Now we're going to take those green strips that we cut, and we are going to weave them in and out of the cuts we made in our blue water piece of paper. You're going to do this with as many green strips as you like. It's really up to you what you want your final piece to look like. You'll also notice that I'm not going over, under for every strip. I'm actually purposefully skipping a couple so that each green strip interacts differently with the blue color. When you're finished with your weaving, make sure to straighten up all of your strips so they're in the spot that you'd like, and then you can flip over your artwork and use a little bit of Scotch tape to tape those strips into place, just to help them stay. The final step for our water lilies piece is to actually draw the flowers themselves onto our paper weaving. So I'm going to take a little bit of those pink, purples, yellows, maybe some more bright greens, and I'm going to actually draw on some little lily pads. Again, remember, Claude Monet was an impressionist artist, so we're not trying to draw something perfect or even necessarily all that real. We're just trying to give the impression of flowers and his water lily garden. The other thing I'm going to add just to finish it off is some of those weeping willow branches, those leaves that are reaching down into the pond. I actually ended up using a felt tip marker for this, just a green marker, and it kind of slid across that paper weaving a little bit easier than a crayon or a pencil. So if you do have a green marker, you can kind of finish that off by drawing some of those weeping willow branches. So now you have a beautiful piece of artwork in the style of Claude Monet's water lilies. Today we worked with texture. We collected texture off of the wall with our crayons and our colored pencils. We also practiced with scissors, so using those fine motor skills and our muscles in our hands to cut those strips. And we practiced weaving those strips in and out of our paper to create this beautiful piece of artwork. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you had fun making it and enjoy it somewhere up in your home.